needs to get to a point where it's just like we're having a Super Bowl party and everyone, when they come in, just like grab your glasses at the door, right? And it's just like, all right, everyone now is AR everywhere in this house. It's a Super Bowl party. Welcome back to This Week in No Code. I'm your host, JJ Englert, here with my co-host, David Pal. We have another fantastic show for you for This Week in No Code. David, are you back in LA yet?
I am back in drenched LA. It has been raining for days. It's finally sunny. Thank goodness. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, we're glad to have you back in the States. I
Yeah.
will actually be in LA next week. And within the next couple of weeks, we will, I think, have the first chance to meet each other in real life.
In real
Uh,
life. Yeah.
so
Uh-huh.
looking forward to seeing if you have legs and all that kind of
I
stuff.
don't. I don't. It's actually just, I'm
Okay.
basically a talking statue. This is a
Okay.
bust of me.
I
No
had a
one.
feeling this, but I guess we'll have to see in a couple of weeks when I come to LA.
Yeah.
Otherwise, listeners, thanks for tuning back into This Week in No Code. We have a small news segment for you this week, and then David and I are going to get into what it's like running Studio No Code, a no code first agency, what we have found by building this agency, keeping it small, building 6 MVPs, 5 MVPs in the last 6 months now, having a lot of success with that, taking some of these MVPs live, working with clients in a live environment, what that requires. We had our pricing plan, whether it's fixed or hourly. We have so much to get into when it comes to running a no-code agency. So we just wanted to take a beat, talk about all that stuff with you. But first, let's start with the news of this week with David.
Well, hello. Good morning from rainy / not rainy anymore Los Angeles, from the flood zone of LA. Not so much news today to talk about, but let's start with some exciting news. Always celebrate our friends' wins. Zero Code buys Minimum Studio plugins. Seems like the whole set of plugins from Minimum Studio now under Zero Code ownership. So take a look in your Bubble editors. I use a ton of Minimum Studio plugins. I think they're a great dev agency that builds really high quality, really useful, like right on target plugins. I use a bunch of them all the time. Hero Icons, I think, is probably the most well known that everyone uses, and everyone saw the bugs that just pushed out because of Bubbles changes. One of the things I love about Minimum Studio's plugins is they've always been really attentive. Like they've always been great at pushing updates. Hopefully, Zero Code holds the torch and pushes this through. So,
and there was a lot of them too. There was 33 plugins that they got acquired.
33 plugins, yeah.
Yeah.
Zero Code's scooping them all up. They
Yeah.
seem to be buying every plugin they can, which is nice. It's great. It also is a little nervous that everything is consolidating under one roof, just from an ecosystem perspective, right? We have vendor
Sure.
lock at Bubble. We now have plugin lock-in with Zero Code. And so I hope that you maintain the torch.
Yeah, there must be an interesting business behind that. They must be seeing success in the plugin ecosystem, and they want more of it, quite frankly. And so this is kind of like a SaaS play for this ecosystem where they can charge and they have a large audience that they can market to, and they have the support team in house that they can use to, manage these. So they've done a good job with it. The support has been well for the plugins that I've used with them. So nothing bad to say. I just hope they keep it up, keep creating cool stuff. I think on the Minimum Studio side, it was interesting that they let go of all of these plugins, right? On the 33 plugins, they'll probably continue to build more because that's
sure
just kind of what they do.
Yeah.
They love doing this stuff, right? But I think it says something about if an agency is also looking to have a side business of plugins, if it's profitable or not, if it's time consuming or not. From this, you would assume that, hey, it's just wasn't making as much money as they could have been making in the agency route with their hourlies and billables. So maybe just focus entirely on the agency and, get a little bit for these plugins and just go all in there. So that's what I think of it.
Yeah. I'm not sure why they sold. It's definitely going to be a distraction from building apps for folks, but you need to build plugins for certain things to work, right? You can't just build it right into the app, especially if you're reusing it. You want to use it in a plugin. So I think it's really smart of them to take what they've built to earn some extra money on the side. But once it starts becoming a distraction and once things become stable, it might as well, go get the cash, as we're going to talk about, agencies are cash flow challenged businesses, and so
Hmm.
getting a bunch of cash to help shore up some accounts may be great. Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe they'll tell us in the comments what they did.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to the next news with Apple Vision Pro. Man, that looks cool. If it wasn't $3,500, like that's a lot of money to
Yeah,
buy. And
yeah,
like from what I am reading, is everyone's kind of like, this is the best consumer tech I have seen in years or
yeah,
maybe ever, but don't buy it yet. Unless you're a developer or like you can warrant just $3,500 purchase. Like, yes, this is incredible, but like it's a V1 and it's not as realistic. Although some of these videos are so funny. Like I love seeing that guy courtside at the game, the NBA game, wearing his Apple Vision, or walking across the street, or ordering food, or working on cars. Like AR is gonna change everything. I feel like this is just the beginning for AR.
yeah. Yeah, it's the beginning. I don't know. I think there's a long way to go before it's really embedded in people's workflow, and the price has to just be so much lower. I guess certain businesses that have like really high stress on people and their kind of functionality, it might be helpful to have a headset like an AR inspections and things may actually improve throughput to justify the $3,500 price. But for the average person, I think it's going to be a little tough. And I think
Yeah,
that's how computers evolved as well, right? Like the first computers were at universities because they
right.
were bulky and slow and didn't do enough for the average person to make it worth it. Eventually, the price came down, and then everyone took them.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
look at the
yeah,
iPod. It started with that big iPod, then it got to
mhm.
the mini, and then it got to a point where it's eventually just in your phone. There
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah,
even
yeah.
need an iPhone. So I think
A little
it's going to get
shuffle.
there.
Yeah.
I think AR itself has already kind of proven success, at least in like Pokemon Go. Remember like that fad that was
Mm.
happening where they were using their phones for AR? Like that was
There
a
are people that are
huge
still playing.
thing. It's
It's
still
not like
playing.
not over. Yeah, people are still using it.
Yeah, and it just adds this whole new unique element to the world. I was thinking the other day, if like you use Apple Vision Pro or any kind of AR, where you essentially just reskin your house to make it look however you want it to look. And so it's just
Mhm.
like, boom, I'm now living in, whatever, it's all glass or whatever. Like there's a lot that you could do and like really cool things just everywhere with AR. So I feel like
Yeah,
it's just one of those things that it's just going to blow up in the next 10 years for sure.
I think we're learning a lot about tech adoption with AI. I think it's following the same trend. There's a lot of really cool stuff you can do. There's
Yeah.
very little useful stuff you can do. And I think that's where, things need to evolve and people need to figure out how it actually inserts itself more effectively. Like I think it's cool. I saw a demo of people touring houses on Zillow through the
Mm.
Apple Vision Pro, right? You can just like
Uh,
look in a room. And I'm sure it's pretty good. But again, I feel like a lot of people are not going to trust it and they still have to go see it. Maybe
sure.
it helps filter out a bunch of things you won't see. Like, oh, I know this one I don't want because I can now see it this way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe for model home builders that want to like help build your showroom, like your example, or wedding
Architecture,
venues.
design. There's so many different industries that can build all this stuff in AR or VR or whatever, and then just say, hey, throw this headset on. Here you go. How does this look? Kind of
Right. Is
thing.
this what you'd
Right.
like? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's going to take a bit to get there. I was thinking the other day, it's like it really also needs to be affordable enough where everyone can in your house can have it, and even your guests. Like I was thinking the other day, like it needs to get to a point where it's just like we're having a Super Bowl party, and everyone when they come in, just like grab your glasses at the door, right? And it's just like, all right, everyone now has AR everywhere in this house. It's a Super Bowl party. We got all of our screens and everything,
Yeah.
but it's just like you can afford to just say, I have extra glasses here. Use this kind of thing, right? Or you don't leave home without your glasses kind of thing,
But
right?
why even go over? Like
Well, you still
let
want
me
to
just stay
be
at
in.
home.
Yeah, I think you'd still want to be in person. I don't know.
Why?
Maybe you don't even go in person anymore. I don't know.
Well, it's interesting because these glasses have come up a long time ago, and I always then thought like, so what does a family room look like? Like most family rooms and homes are like TV centered, right?
Yeah.
Everyone, the couches, the chairs, they all point towards the TV. Well, now it's just like a big circle,
Yeah.
right? Like just chairs kind of pointing at each other because it doesn't matter anymore. Indiscriminate chairs around the room.
It would make the design of the home look better, and it could just save
Right?
you from having to buy so many damn TVs. So
Yeah, yeah.
I really like the tracking part of it where you could like set up screens in different parts of the house or the room and like go there. I know it's not perfect yet, but like I really love the idea of going to your stove and placing timers over the pots and then walking into the other room
Mm,
and seeing your TV and other monitors kind of still in that position. Like
yeah.
I didn't know that that was going to be a thing, and it is, and it's still like a V1. The tracking still needs to be improved. I think it's just at like 30 frames a second right now, and it needs to get way more than that. But I still really liked that kind of spatial awareness and tracking of it. And it feels very much like this is the first iPod kind of thing, or
Yeah.
like maybe a little bit more than that because it's quite expensive, but like the first generation of something revolutionary. And it's nice to see Apple innovating again because it's been quite a while, in my opinion.
Yeah, my first thought when you talk about the timers was, oh, great. Now, well, that's cool because now I can set the timer and I don't have to keep pulling my phone out. But then I was like, but then I have to put my headset on.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't really solve the problem of needing the technology.
Yeah,
Like to be able to have it nearby, have it on hand, have it charged.
I think we're just gonna get to that point where we're gonna wear glasses, and it's gonna be like prescription or regular glasses, but everyone is gonna have glasses on, and that's gonna be like our phone. That's gonna be like you wake up, you put your glasses on, there's your AR world. Like that's where I feel like we're going, kind of thing. And
People will live there. Yeah.
yeah, and some people will live there for sure, and some
Yeah.
people won't put the glasses on, but yeah. All right, so we started this studio. Was it August? I think it
I
was
think
right around
August.
August. Yeah,
Yeah.
and we got our first project homemade
Pretty quickly.
pretty quickly near the end of August. We got our first project. I think we got paid for the first time in September. And so we went on to build Homemade, which was a
Mhm.
marketplace two-sided MVP. Then we went on to build
Sure.
Yistrict, which was a
Mhm.
two-sided social marketplace kind of thing.
Like an
Um,
information social feed
yep,
for local government and elections.
yep. And then we went on to build Hire Latino.
Hmm.
Is that the third one? Which
Yep.
was a two-sided marketplace to hiring more affordable talent in South America for like VAs and whatnot.
Yep.
And then we went on to build. I thought we had another one too. And we have
We almost, well, there were a couple that we were close to starting, but I think that's, I'm
okay,
just looking at the channels in our
yeah.
Slack group. I think that's it. And then,
And then we have Media Space, which is our current one.
yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's
and Media Space is a two-sided marketplace. So they all
very
marketplaces,
good.
just about all marketplaces.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't really call Yistrict a marketplace,
Yeah, that's
but
fair.
I think marketplaces are the vast majority, not the vast, I'd say more than half of all bubble apps that get built through agencies are marketplaces of some kind of like two sided half, because usually the people that are building marketplaces want to build an app structure. They aren't the ones doing the thing to be sold. And I think it's a
Yeah,
little different with Homemade because she was like Mackenzie, the CEO, she was already like orchestrating all of this herself. So
right.
but she's not the chef, like she's not the caterer, and she's not an event organizer, but she was
Yeah.
connecting the two. And so I think that's pretty common how many businesses work, especially in the software first world.
Yeah. So, yeah, and then our final marketplace that we're building now is Media Space. That's our biggest one so far,
Mhm.
and that's a two-sided marketplace where influencers can go and list, their podcast
Yeah,
availability, their any kind of sponsorships, and then the sponsors can go in and book those with integrated scheduling and whatnot. And so
yeah.
that's our current one, and then we have, of course, tons of that we're bidding out and have in our pipeline. But funny the thing has been in marketplaces. Also, I thought we did more than four, but I guess it's
I
been
know we
four.
didn't start off with six, but I guess
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. But I
four.
guess it's been four in about 5 months, going on to 6 months now. And we have learned a lot. When we first started off, it was we said what, $10,000 for an MVP in 4 weeks. Right? That's
I think
the first
20
thing
was
we
what
said.
the first MVP was 20.
And
We
then and
tried to
then
get 20, but we didn't get 20 the first time.
yeah, well, we were just like,
We'll take it
our
again.
first message to Twitter was 10,000 in 4 weeks, and then everyone quickly said that's too cheap, and so then we was like, all right, 20,000 in 4 weeks
Which everyone on
on our
Twitter should have
website.
also said that's too cheap too.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
no
and
one
so we
said
put
that.
that on our website, but we've actually never built an app for $20,000. It was
Exactly
either
20,000 in
yeah,
exactly
it's
12
either
weeks.
below that or over that. The
Yeah,
irony of the fixed price. But the thing that we did kind of keep was that fixed price was okay, people came to us with all sorts of ideas, all sorts of complexity. And we're
yeah,
not just going to say it's 10,000 because it's 10,000. We're going to say, you know, this is how long it's actually going to take after we scope it for you and everything, right? And
yeah.
so we quickly learned, all right, so some of these are going to take longer, some of these are going to take shorter. We scoped it, we figured out how much it would actually take, and then we added in some small contingency on our side just to make sure it didn't go wrong, and then we gave them a fixed price for that, right?
And well, not always. The real truth is sometimes we just said whatever budget you had, we'll do. It's fine. We just wanted the projects and get
At
moving.
least the first one, the
The
first two,
first,
we were like that.
I think the first three.
Maybe the first three,
Yeah,
yeah.
basically, almost all of them were just like, "Oh, you don't have 20? Oh, yeah, that's fine. Like, we'll
Yeah.
do it."
So the
And
first
yeah,
three, we were definitely not, well, we were beggars, not choosers, and if that's the word you could use it. But by the
mhm.
fourth, we were just like, okay, we need to charge what we need to charge, which is
Yeah, we're
actually, you
losing.
know,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, I think, with the fixed price, it's good because there are some benefits. The benefits of the fixed price is, all right, you're going to make this much. And if you do come in under budget, that's extra money that you're making, right? Which is good.
right.
And that's great. And it's
If
just
you
simple.
calculate by hour, yeah,
Right.
it's
Right.
extra hourly.
And it's just simple. It's just we're going to charge you this much and we don't need to worry about tracking our hours on an hourly basis, all that kind of stuff. So it keeps it simple and less complex. But the bad thing about billing by a fixed amount is the estimations are really hard, and development is really hard, design is really hard, and building a business for the first time with these entrepreneurs is really hard. And so
Expectation setting and alignment is impossible.
exactly. And so you build something and it's maybe 95% there and it's a really really good V1, but then sometimes it's like, well, this pixel isn't right. And or now that we see this, we actually want it this way. Or no, we saw this is good, but now that our users are using it, we want it this way. And all of that stuff is fine. Like all of that stuff is development and like that
Yeah,
is what it is, right? But the
that's
hard
why
part is
software companies keep software developers on staff,
right.
right? Because
Exactly.
the software is a living, breathing thing. It always changes. There's always updates. There's always new complexity.
Right. But then with the fixed pricing method, it's just like, well, when do we draw the line of like this was the functionality included in your V1, but eventually we got to start charging you more
Yeah,
or hourly for this additional stuff. And I
right,
think that has been particularly hard for us because we want to make sure our clients are happy, right? First and foremost, and we want to help them succeed.
right.
And I'd say the third thing is working with no code, we could just make these changes so quick that it's just not like sometimes worth going and asking for more money when we could just do it in 20 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
I'd say those are the three things, but it creates this fine line then of like, okay, well, you're then setting precedents for like how work goes in the future and what we can ask for, what we can add on, what is charged and what's not charged, and there's that really tricky line, right? So I think
Yeah.
we could talk a little bit about like how do we find that line, which we're still trying to do, and then also there's another part of it too, which is we have an internal PM, product manager, right? And also the amount of work that he takes on to organize us, to communicate back and forth, and how do we pay for him, how do we track his hours, and also like scheduling and all that kind of stuff. It's just a lot of overhead that goes back and forth with working with a client like this, especially if they're in like a live situation where they expect quicker turnarounds.
Yeah.
So it's new for us of just all right, we've built a lot of apps, we've built a lot of live apps, but mostly when we worked with our live apps, they were like our employers, right? And so it's just like, okay, they expect a quick turnaround because that was our only focus. But now working with live apps that are not our employers and we have multiple clients, right? I think setting expectations for turnarounds and what we can do for each of those clients is utmost importance. And I think that's also been hard for us.
Yeah, a few different things. First, every client's most urgent issue is a fire for them, right? But we can't manage multiple fires at the same time, right?
Right.
And the level of fire is always subjective, right? If they've never built an app before and they haven't worked with things in production and they haven't spent this much time with any other piece of software, they don't know what bugs are normal or not. Right? Like we've all worked with apps that have bugs. You just happen to know where the bugs are. You know what's tolerable, like what you can push off, how you prioritize your list. But for some folks that are new to software operations, right, not building, they're not building it themselves, but running a software platform, they're not used to having backlogs of tickets that need to
Yeah.
get done eventually, right? So everything always needs to be perfect. Bugs need to be solved immediately, all of that. The second thing, they say this about entrepreneurship and hiring. When you hire someone, you have to understand no one will care about your business as much as you do,
Yeah.
right? That's the same in reverse with agencies, right? We can't care about everyone's business as much as they do. And we care about the agency, right? Like that's our
Yeah.
business. Our business is building an agency, not necessarily being their product head or.
Team.
And so there's always this trade-off, especially in the fixed price world. And I think this is where things get a little murky. They want us to care about every little pixel, which we should, and we should be delivering, as close to pixel perfect designs as
Yeah.
possible. But when we're not getting paid any more for the next little thing that they want to add, it's kind of like, well, it's not really good for our business to do that.
Yeah.
Right? We should be going and earning more the next dollar in the fixed price, you know, where what falls into free work at the end is an open question and never well defined, right? No matter how hard we try to push, okay, we're approve the Figma, right? Like the first thing we did was, we built the Figma, we handed it off. We're like, hey, well, this is what we're building. They add some comments. And then, like, as we're going through, they're changing things. And we weren't very
Yeah.
clear that we're only going to hit what's in the Figma. The
Right.
last project, we were very clear. Look at it. You have a week left on the Figma comments before we start building. Nothing else gets added. This is exactly what. But even
Yeah.
then, we still had, kind of this. Well, they had a different Figma they were also working from, and we were pushing what was there. And Figma is a flat design, right? Like there isn't every little interaction. So
Yeah.
is it included? Is it in there? What if things don't look great in real life? Like all of those things, right? It's not all designed for every screen size, so things look different as they stretch. Like all of these things, is it part of what's in Figma? I guess kind of, but if you wanted all these fine little details, one, we should have spent more time designing, which you should have been paying for, and two, that should have been a bit more clear as we're
Yeah.
building.
Yeah, I think it's hard because most of the clients that we're working with are first-time entrepreneurs and or first-time tech entrepreneurs, right? And building technology for the first time. And I think what things that we do really well is we work with them and we help them find success. We help them plan properly. We help set expectations, right? But that's also hard to do. And sometimes there are things that come up that we didn't actually foresee. And, we learn from that. We get better for
Yeah,
the next client. But it's just generally hard to do because it's a hard process. You're like, we're turning out 100 tickets a week, right? And for one
yeah. I
of our
think this last
clients,
week we did 140 tickets.
we did 140 tickets in a week, and with two people, and the amount of context switching that requires that, and that is also a factor of your development team. Like, if I need to do every single thing 100% pixel perfect, which I always strive for, but I have to do that 140 times, that's gonna be really, really difficult, right? And we need to pick what are the most important things here. Where do I spend my time? What is really going to move the needle? Kind of thing, especially in the V1, V2 world, because it's just not realistic to take every single thing to the utmost perfect pixel because it's you're going to be there forever. And then what happens when a user doesn't end up using it, and then you trash it all, and then that is all, time wasted. So I think ethically, that's maybe some stuff that I battle with, of just like when I put something out 98% pixel perfect, and then I move on to my other 75 tickets, and then they come back and say, oh no, this is 2% pixel perfect off, go back and do it. And it's just like, it's frustrating because there's so much other stuff that we're trying to do that's going to move the needle. But
Yeah.
understandably, at the same time, they're paying for a product and they want their product. So it is one of those things where you kind of need to give on each side needs to give a little bit, understanding the situation and the gravity of what we're building for
Yeah. Yeah, I think, and to be clear, I think a lot we're venting a little bit, but everyone we've worked with has been very understanding when we explain the
and
situation. I
wonderful
think
clients in that way.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's important to set and check in and communicate that, hey, this is what's happening. Like, we can't just keep going forever.
And there were projects that we didn't take on because we didn't think we could work with that client in a way that we want
Yeah,
to. Like picking a client is really important. Like, because you're building really advanced technical stuff, and hopefully this is a long-term relationship with each other, right? And so you need to pick someone that you can be in the trenches with on a weekly basis, right? And I
yeah,
think with our 4 clients, we've been really lucky with that so far. And that's part of like the scoping process. We pay to scope, and it's mostly because we want to make sure, one, that they're serious before we dedicate a lot of time to them, and two, scoping is really, really important. We need to
yeah.
figure out what's involved in everything, and then three, it gives us the time to work with them to see if we want to work with them for a longer term relationship.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think we're finally getting some projects that are much longer, not just the build phase and hand it off, which I think
Yeah,
is what we intended when we started the agency side.
yeah,
We're like, okay, great. We're going to take 4 weeks. We'll start day one, day 28. We'll never talk to you again, right? Like, here's your app. Your MVP is done. And like, goodbye, good luck, right?
yeah,
And that was kind of the thought, I think, in what we were starting. It wasn't meant to be, hey, we're just like building this like book of business.
yeah,
And we're getting to the point where lots of people are asking about, okay, great, what comes next?
yeah.
And
And how can you support me in a more rapid environment?
yeah, we
Fine.
want ongoing work, we want ongoing support, and we want more features coming. Like, we cut what we needed to hit the budget, and now we want to add new things. Hey, we've launched, now we're going
Yeah.
to need X, Y, and Z. Can you help us add these features? And those now have a weird trade-off associated with them, right? Because now context switching within an app is hard. Context switching between apps is even
It's even
harder,
harder.
right? Getting into fresh build mode versus edit mode on a different app is really tough. And so,
And also QAing in build mode for a live app to make sure that
yeah,
your rework
QAing,
doesn't
yeah,
create new
managing
bugs.
tickets,
Yeah.
monitoring Trello boards, like multiple
Yeah.
Trello boards, and
Going back and
prioritizing the
forth with the
time. Yeah,
conversations to make sure you're clear. There's just a lot of overhead that comes with working with that client, even if you're not actually building for the in the moment for them. So
yeah,
a lot of mental bandwidth, I would say,
yeah. And so now we
required.
need to think about how we work. And so now we have this trade off. Okay, great. Context switching is going to be really hard. But now we have a decision to make of bringing on more people, right? Great.
Right.
Now we have more work, right? It's not just single threaded. We're going to build an app. We look at our two schedules and go, can we do this in the next 6 weeks? Do we have the time to do this?
Yeah.
Let's just hit the ground running and build it. Now we're juggling a lot more work than we need. And so now we're like, great, how do we scale this? Like, how do we add the first next person, right? And
Yeah.
what does that mean? And what project do they go on? The new project? Do they go on the management project? Do they go on the next features? Like,
Right.
what is that? And then how does it change our margins, right? In the fixed price world, we talked about things going over. Well, they go over because now we're earning less than our hourly rate, what we want.
Right.
But when you start bringing other people in, you actually still have to pay them, right?
Yeah.
And
So
you
it
have to,
actually goes over.
and it actually goes over, right? Like,
Yeah.
in this fixed price model, you take a lot more risk when you add another person because you could actually, the two of us personally can put money into the project to
Yeah.
pay the guy because we're not getting paid enough.
Right.
And that is never a position that we we should be in, right? Like
Yeah.
there's no chance I ever want to put money in to finish a project
After months of working on that project.
and then still have to do the work if the
Yeah.
work isn't up to par. And then what? Right? Like the agency
Yeah.
world, you there's no exit multiple based on this asset you've built, right? Like, oh, we built these 6 apps that they're not ours. We can't go sell them.
Hmm.
We just lost a bunch of money. And I'd rather just sit around and do nothing than work really hard and lose money, right?
Yeah, it's a hard business, and we have chosen particularly or specifically to keep it small, just the two of us, because we both like building, and I personally don't want to get into a supervisor role where I'm not building anymore. I'm just working with clients and communicating, and or planning, sales, all that kind of stuff, right? Like that's not why I'm doing this right now. For me personally, I'm doing this to build and keep my skills
Yeah,
top notch and to work alongside of you and to create some cool things, right?
yeah,
So that was always my intent. But at least when we started, it was.
yeah,
And then
yeah,
as we've grown, it's kind of pushing us of like, well, we have all this work. What do we do with it? Do we say, okay, we're going to add more people, which then takes us our responsibilities of it changes them, right? Puts us
right.
into a different kind of role. Do we want that? Is that going to be, are we going to be pushed into a direction that we want? Or do we say, no, we can't actually take on this work? We start booking out, or we just start denying it because
Mhm.
that's kind of where we are at, right? And I think all three of those things are worth a conversation, and it depends on what you want personally. But we have definitely not tried to grow this thing
Yeah,
on
we have
purpose,
been
right?
very specific about this is the work we are going to do to fill our
Right,
schedules to
right.
earn what we can.
And
And it's
even
a
that,
catch.
we only
Yeah,
yeah, even that we work a piece 20 hours a week because we still have other things that we are still passionate about that
mhm,
we still want to do, and
yeah,
not just to have the agency do everything for us, right? Because I think we've seen a lot of our other colleagues where the agency saw success, they went all in on it, and with each new quarter and growth, the role changed, and eventually they were never building anymore. They're not even hiring anymore. Maybe they're just all sales now, and they're doing a whole different thing than when they got started. And yes, the revenue month over month is good, but what does that profit margin look like? What does the multiple on it look like? What
yeah,
and then at the end of the day, you're not actually doing something, a role that you actually enjoy, and you don't want that either. So it's this weird thing of like, how do we grow this thing, make more money, but still do what we want to do and have the life we want to
yeah,
have? I think that's kind of the dilemma with agencies.
yeah, and make enough money to keep doing stuff that we want to do on the side, right?
Right,
Like if we said, okay, great, we're going to bring on someone full time and pay them full time, we have to give them enough work to do, right,
right.
to stay busy to pay their full time salary. Well, that means we're going to earn less. And at what point do we earn so little? Not so little, but not enough to pay the bill to make it worth doing because we should have just been doing the work,
Yeah.
less of it. Um, there's like a trade off. Like if it's not our full thing and we'd rather be doing, not rather be, we're also doing other things, and this is supplementing that income to help pay everything, pay all of the bills. Then and we're not meeting that criteria. Well, why do any of it do something else that could pay the bills? But the trade off is while those other things that could pay the bills are a bit of an unknown, right? They're a bit of maybe it'll work out, but you have to wait
Right.
another 6 months before it's earning enough money to pay the bills.
Right.
And so it's
And
almost like at some point you might rather just do less work, like do less total work at the agency level so that it's maintainable for just us to do so we can earn enough money without the hiring.
yeah, and I think Eric from Flywheel Studios recently posted about this, and also Jesus as well from NoCode Agency of, Q4 last year was really slow for the agency, or kind of vice versa, whatever it may be. But the importance of having 3, 4, 5, 6 months of runway, should you have an agency with a lot of employees and have a
Mhm.
slow quarter or a slow month, to be able to pay for all those folks to still work, even though you don't have the
Yeah.
clients for it, right? And then it's like, okay, agencies are great for cash flow. That's great. But if you're storing 6 months of it away for those rainy days, then it's like maybe the cash flow isn't good after all because it's just going into reserves and not your pocket after all with those kind of bigger agencies. And I think that could be a downside should you not have consistent enough sales.
Yeah. Yeah. Once you start trying to grow and move out of, and I've said this about what we've built, it's kind of an agency. It's also kind of just like the three of us building stuff together, right,
Hmm.
as a team. It's not an
Yeah.
agency in the sense of, we're trying to scale and add people, and
We don't have a
we're
sales
just
team or sales
managers,
efforts.
and
Yeah.
we're just building. Like, we just happen to build apps for folks.
Yeah.
We know how, we're good at it, and so we just build. Like, that's the thing we do, and we charge for it. Yeah, I don't know that we have a good, like, really model of how the agency thing works, and I think it becomes a whole new beast if we try to approach it like an agency instead of just the two of us doing work.
Yeah, the most popular model right now is productized services, right? So throw some kind of retainer monthly fee on the services, right? We see this a lot with Design Joy and the design industry and whatnot. Haven't seen it as much in the development industry, but I do think that it could work. It's a little bit more complicated, but it could work. Some other agencies, no code agencies, are charging like 5 grand every 2 weeks kind of thing, or they kind of split it up into like a weekly or a bi-weekly thing of just like, hey, we're going to do 2 week sprints. You pay for every single sprint you do kind of thing. You can pause at any time. you
Yeah.
know there's negatives and positives that go with that, but one thing I would say is now that we're doing as much overhead admin product management work as we are doing with this one client in a live environment, those start to make a lot more sense of we need some kind of retainer or monthly amount minimum that we can guarantee in order to give this level of service so we can staff accordingly on a consistent basis going
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if it's just still on an hourly or it's still on you know a fixed price here and a fixed price there, and what's all that in between and what's happening there, it's just too hard to, I think, provide excellent service without having that type of retainer in place
Hmm.
personally.
Yeah. You can't really plan anything to hire. You don't know how many people you need to hire in 3 weeks because you don't know
Right.
if there's work for them in 3 weeks.
Right.
And it's a little risky even to do it at,
two
if you
weeks
offer 2 week sprints, because
Yeah.
in theory there's something else. You need a pipeline of deal flow to
Yeah.
really justify that you'll always be growing, because then you'll eventually be dying, right? And then you start
Yeah.
losing people, and then things get really tight, and it's cash flow, right? Like, this is not unusual with any service business, right? Like roofers or carpenters, right? You want to
Hmm.
build a carpentry business, you hire a bunch of people to help do work. Well, if the work dries up, well, who gets paid, right?
Right.
Unless everyone's a partner at the agency and you're just like, great, we're just splitting everything. We're going to try to do as much work as possible to get it done. Like, I don't know how you possibly and
Yeah.
confidently just grow everything without constantly worrying about needing to fire everyone, or fire some people and then hire back and shrink and grow. It seems dreadful.
Like it's on those quiet months, you might think, all right, well, then we'll just have the team spin up like a new SaaS product or something, or
Yeah.
start some kind of other endeavor like a venture studio or something like that. Like we have the team, we have the capabilities. It's dry right now. Why don't we do something else? But I think kind of what we saw with Minimum Studio early on is like, yeah, they probably had that and they built 33 plugins, and that is value that was added.
Yeah.
But they probably ended up finding out that that took a lot of time, and that took them away
Yeah.
from the core business, and that took them away from other things that probably earned them more money. So they ended up just cashing out and getting back to the things that earn them the most money. And I feel like that is also the dangerous thing with agencies of like, all right, well, it's a dry month, let's just spin up our own SaaS product, and then that SaaS product bleeds into the next couple of months or whatever, and instead of doing agency billables, you're working on this for free. And if this doesn't actually work or take off because you need to bring it to market, you need a GTM, a sales team, marketing, etc., and all the costs that invest in that, then it's an additional drain rather than an
Right.
additional generator in your pocket, and requires more bandwidth than you might be able to give it. So it's not just it's a dry month, let's go create something, because that comes with a lot of weight as well.
Yeah. Like, you just make up a job for folks. Like, I think the wall in Ireland and Scotland, you see lots of like in the countryside, you see lots of fences, not fences, stone walls.
Yeah.
Those stone walls are there because it was the Great Depression and the government didn't want to give money away for nothing. They gave people fake jobs of building these stone walls. Like they just only exist because they needed something to do. And like that kind of happens with this like, hey, let's just try launch something.
Yeah.
Well, it's probably not really that helpful or probably not going to work out. And I think that's a symptom of every agency, not every agency. The majority of agencies I've known are always one bad month away from converting into a venture studio.
Yeah.
Like everyone just would rather be launching their own products, but no one pays until they pay, and they can't fund 100 new bets like a venture
Yeah.
portfolio. Right? They may have time for one, but no one can bet the one because you don't know if it's going to work. And
Right.
so there's this tension of cash now versus venture, and this is always the trade off. Like it just seems like that's always the someone's I hate, I hate this. I wish I was a venture studio. Or they try to fund it the venture studio separately, but running a venture studio is very different than running an agency.
Right.
And so they're competing priorities in time, and you just don't really know.
Yeah.
It's just like, well, why is anyone doing anything? They're trying to get paid. They're trying to make ends meet. They're trying to get rich quick. They're trying to get enough to survive. Whatever their goals are, they're doing it for the cash. Like no one's running an agency for philanthropy. They're like, yeah, I just like helping people. You don't have to pay me. It's fine. I'll fund it.
Hmm.
No one does that because they all want to make money. So
Sure.
that's what they're aiming for first, right? They're
Yeah.
aiming first to go make money, and the quick money, the quick next project is not always, but usually there. And so the default is just to say, well, I'll just one more project. This is the
Yeah.
last project. But
Let's work to put a couple bows on these thoughts. I don't
mhm,
think we're gonna be able to like wrap it up and officially say like this is what you need to do because I don't think we have those answers for you. We're still trying to figure those out ourselves.
mhm,
I'd say a couple things. If you do have a quiet month, I like the idea of creating like spec work or some kind of like go out and recreate this. There's whatever something so you can show the world the quality of work that you're able to deliver. And if there's like no strings attached, you don't need to bring it to market or anything like that. You can abandon it at any time. That's a good way to just say, hey, look at we just built all these really cool things. Give us a chance on your next project, kind of thing, right? And I think
yeah,
Flywheel did a little bit of that when Flutterflow was doing their competition. They had some downtime. They had just developers put together some really cool Flutterflow templates and apps. And that was really cool to see their capabilities come to life like that. Because sometimes when you're doing client work, most times you can't actually show the work that you're doing, right? So a lot of
mhm,
our work doesn't actually go on to be seen. And we need our work to be seen in order for us to get more clients, right?
yeah,
So I do like the idea of just spec work, small little stuff that you can spin up to show what you can do in a short time with very little strings attached. And you can punt at any time should agency work come in.
yeah,
I think another bow that we could put on this is agency stuff is tough. It's important to find clients that you enjoy working with, that you can work with. And if you have clients that it's just grinding more gears and it's not working, maybe it's just best that you do separate ways because you want what's best for both parties and you also want to enjoy what you're doing, right?
yeah.
And if you dislike working with them, every time you have to work with them, then maybe it's just not worth it. Maybe the opportunity cost of them taking them on as a client is not worth it and you should just part ways and find a new client that you could work better with. And then I think the last thing I'll
Yeah,
say on my
you
side to
could
put a
definitely
bow in it,
fire a client.
yeah,
That's the thing.
I think the last thing I'll say before I put it over to you for putting some bows on things is make sure that you're not being pushed in a direction that you don't want to be pushed in, right? As new clients come in, as new opportunities come in, there are a lot of dollar signs at the beginning of that. But those dollar signs do route you to a path. You need to be okay going on that path if you're going to accept that deal. And so be very intentional about the work you are taking on, the clients you are taking on, and making sure that it's bringing you to a spot that you want to be in, right? And I think David and I have done a really good job with that. And there's a reason why we're such a small agency still is because we've intentionally kept it that way, right?
Yeah,
And so I think we've had a success in that way of We know that we also like to do more things outside of this, but this is also a major thing that we do, and that also brings us joy in these roles. So for now, that's how we're going to keep it until maybe we are ready to grow. But otherwise, that's kind of our status quo. So what do you think, David? How can we wrap up some of these other thoughts that we've had?
Yeah, I think for the agency owners listening, I think lots of people are feeling similar things a lot. I think finding other people to talk to and vent to is helpful. It's nice that we can talk to each other about this, right? We're not just like the one man show
Sure.
trying to figure it out. We can bounce ideas off of it. I think every client is an opportunity to change a process, improve, or stop. Like you
Yeah.
could just say, hey, we did it, we're done, that's it, we're wrapping. If you really don't like it, I think life's too short to do things you hate. If you can sell clients on custom software, high ticket custom software, you could probably sell other things as well.
Hmm.
And sometimes it's just about taking a bet on yourself, doing the work instead of outsourcing the work and earning the dollar and putting some feelers out there.
Yeah.
Um, and I think make sure that everything you take is something you can do for 6 months or a year. Like be prepared to do that, and if you don't see it, don't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And there's a lot more that we can get into. I don't think we have the time for it today, but different types of industries. We service mostly entrepreneurs, but if we shift our ICP to, larger corps, and what do those services look like and what do those packages work like? I think there's huge
yeah,
opportunity there. Different tool sets that you could use, particularly we are using Bubble because that's what we're really, really good at. But I don't think we're just Bubble. If there was something that's better for the job, we would look into it. I think generally we are no code, low code studio agnostic in that sense, but our daily driver is Bubble because that's kind
yeah,
of where we've come from, and it does lend itself well to these types of MVPs that we're creating with marketplaces, right? So
yep,
I think all that comes into it, but I do think that being able to have different skill sets and different platform skill sets does open you up to even more work outside of just Bubble work. A lot of WeWeb stuff coming in, a lot of Flutterflow stuff coming in. All that kind of work could lead to more opportunities in
yeah.
different areas and different clients as well.
That's fair. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So,
Cool. Well, I think
whatever you're doing with your journey, just make sure it's what you want to do in your journey. It's your journey. So, do it for a reason.
yeah,
Have fun with it. Make sure it's taking you to the place that you want to go. But otherwise, like, we're in a good time right now. Like, technology is
yeah.
flourishing, platforms are getting better than ever. People recognize the need for automations, for efficiencies, for technologies.
No
I
code
think
is
more
getting
than
more
ever before.
acceptable. Hmm.
I think every company is turning into a tech company. So it can't be a better time than what it is for what we're doing right now. Just make sure it's what you want to do. That's all.
Yeah,
That's all we're gonna say.
yeah, yeah. And you can always take a break, come back, realize you made the wrong choice, and there's going to be more demand. There's always going to be more people building software. No code will still be here. You know, take a chance.
All right. That's all we got for you this week. Otherwise, we will see you next week
Next week
in
in no
No
code.
Code. See you guys.
See ya.